Okay, hello everybody. My name is Ken Shibusawa. I'm the founder of Commons Asset Management. I'm also the CEO of Shibusawa and Company. Thank you very much for Japan Times for arranging this wonderful session. I'm honored and privileged to be joined by a wonderful panel today, as mentioned in the introduction. This session is about ESG, and I remember about 15, 16 years ago, this person came up to me very excitedly that the time's come for ESG, and CSR is over, it's time for ESG. This is about 15, 16 years ago. And that person's actually sitting right next to me. It was actually Mariko-san. And back then, ESG started out with discussions within the United Nations. And back then, Mariko-san and other experts in the field, some people knew about ESG. But if you think about it, for most people in management, in corporations, for the capital markets, ESG was something on the side that somebody special did, not mainstream. But as mentioned earlier, ESG is right down the middle now. It's on the main stage in the minds of corporate executives and also in the capital markets. And so for today, in our session, we were talking about the communication with various stakeholders and the corporation's efforts to promote ESG in their context. And so today, kind of wanted, we had just 1 hour, but I was hoping that would kind of follow this sort of format of why the individuals on the panelists are engaging on ESGs. Then we'll go into the what question, what they're doing, and towards the end, we'll go into the nitty-gritty of how. And so let's do it that way. Is that all right? Okay, so Jerome's online with me. Are you okay?
Hello, Ken. Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so you get to go last because ladies first. Okay. Okay. So why don't we start with Mariko-san, because you were the ESG person.
Well, thank you, Ken. My name is Mariko Kawaguchi, as just Ken-san has just mentioned, but I've forgotten that I was talking to him 15, 16 years ago. That's going to be the ESG issue, that era. And actually, I'm involved in the ESG or sustainability issues for more than 20 years. But I decided to focus my life on ESG when I was in university, so which makes it like nearly 40 years. So I'm very happy to see the change that the people are more and more interested in ESG in the business scene and also in the financial scene. And the reason why I'm here, I am now working as an advisor to CEO of the Fuji Oil Group, which is the edible oil company. And the reason why I'm here is that for the last 20, 30 years, I was involved in ESG or ESG investment for the financial industry, also the CSR for the corporate section. And then I came to notice that the two sections promoting sustainability is not good enough, because the most important key is the consumers or ourselves or the citizens. If you produce some eco-friendly products, if the consumers won't buy because it's 10% expensive or so, then the company will not be providing anymore because it's not making money. And then the investors will not focus on that issue. So if the consumers change their attitude and they evaluate the level of the eco-friendly products or the products which concerns about the human rights and so on, then the companies are happy to produce those products. And then the investors will follow. Mm-hmm. So that will change whole trend that the people to make the community itself sustainable. That's why I'm working with the Fuji Oil to change the mindset of the consumers, that the ethical consumption and sustainability is an important issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mariko-san. So you were involved in ESG even before the word was invented, because when you were in college, that was more than 15 years ago, I think. So.
Yeah, more than 15 years.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And so, Jen, so what are you doing? And self-introduction, why are you involved in ESG currently?
Well, thank you so much, Ken, for the opportunity to join you on this panel. So my name is Jen Montesano, and I guess you could say I come to ESG perhaps maybe I'm the novice on the panel, because I actually come to the subject and have become very passionate about it due to the work that I'm doing with LIXIL. And really, my purpose in life is to help companies, organizations, and people really achieve their fullest potential. And as the world becomes more complex, I think the difficult job is to make it simpler. And as someone who's in a very senior position, and very privileged at LIXIL, we came together through a jumble of M&As all at once. And, we really were forced to reckon with our purpose. What is our role as an actor in this society? And it really helped us to jumpstart thinking from inside out what it really means to be a sustainable contributing actor in the global community in which we work and live. And so that's really how I've come to the ESG subject.
Excellent. So thank you for bringing the people-centric aspect of ESG. That's very important. Thank you so much. Jérôme, thank you for waiting. So a little self-intro, and why are you promoting ESG in your capacity?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, first to you and to the Japan Times. I'm very honored to be part of this panel. I'm maybe not the novice, but I'm certainly the business guy, very far at the beginning, at least from sustainability. Why I'm here? Obviously, I'm here in the quality of president of L'Oréal Japan. I work in a company that has declared 15 years ago that there would be no future for companies that do not give equal importance to financial results and to social and environmental impact. And everybody looked at us 15 years ago a bit like strangers when we published, next to the financial report, the first sustainability report that we have issued year after year, where nobody was asking for it, and when nobody was even probably looking at it, except a few people that had this intuition that the world was really changing. What I think personally has changed for me is first this idea of responsibility. We are the #1 cosmetic company in the world. We produce efficacy, safety, but suddenly the new word appeared as responsibility, because we believe consumers will be more and more watching not only efficacy and safety, but also responsibility. Are these companies acting responsibly in order to be trusted and to be respected? And I think as a business leader, my big wish is my company is seen by consumers and by all stakeholders as acting responsibly and could be trusted. And the second impact, to be honest, is we are always looking for talents. And I am amazed at the generation change. And when I interview some talents, or when we interview young talents, the importance for them to go in a meaningful company and an engaged company has completely changed, I would say, over the past 5-6 years. It's honestly 10 years ago, it was a few, I would say, a few passionate people. But now almost everyone will ask, what are you doing to contribute to the community? So I think it's not any longer a corporate responsibility. It's even how do you give pride to your people to work for your company?
Okay, great. Jérôme, excellent point. Thank you very much. And so I mentioned that CSR evolved into ESG, but I guess in the root of it, there is that concept of responsibility for corporations to act in the interest of the community, and by doing that, attracting good young talent. So thank you very much for bringing up that point. So for the next section, I wanted to go into the what question. So what the companies are doing in promoting ESG. So I think we'll go in the same order starting with Mariko-san with Fuji Oil.
これでいいですかね。Can I start? これで押せばね。Okay. Okay, Fuji Oil Group is a food company, but it's not well known because it's B2B company, and what we produce is vegetable oil and other protein products. And purpose of the company, work for people, like Jérôme has said, is the purpose. And how to do it? We produce plant-based food to save the planet. And for what we do for the planet, we have rewarded 3 A ratings from CDP. It's climate, water, and forest from CDP. So we're much much into the sustainability issues. And for the people, human rights and diversity is one of the major topics. And for the DX, it's sort of like a future topic. But now for the smart agriculture, and then for the monitoring of the forest deforestation, the DX is sort of essential. And for the future supply chain issues, you have to use the DX. Then this is our business model. We use palm, cacao, and soybean, those three very, very sensitive raw materials for the deforestation and also for the child labor and other human rights issues. And by using these three raw materials, we produce oil products, and then the products seen here, like creams and the other products for many of the clients who are mostly B2C food companies and the restaurants and so on. And our mission is we produce plant-based food. And we had this for a long time, but actually the world is now changing to a plant-based recently. Less meat, more plant is a global trend. So we're on the right track on that. And to enhance that kind of plant-based food solutions as a mainstream of the business model, we have this concept of 3X management model, which is that management of technology, we need technology, and also management of economics, which is all the companies are doing. And that's usually the base for the company management. And on top of that, we have MOS, management of sustainability. So we have 3 axes, and our mission is to maximize the access and using this management of sustainability. And for the what we are doing for the planet and human rights, we promote sustainable procurement of raw materials. So we have policies for non-deforestation, no peatland deforestation, no peatland, and no child labor policy, and for palm oil and also for cacao. And we are not just working on the soybean procurement policy right now. And also for the planet, we have received 3 A's from CDP's rating, which is for the climate. And we also use SBT, imply SBT for the carbon policy. And for the forest, we have this deforestation program. And then for the water, we use a lot of water, so we have this water management very strictly. And this is, for your reference, what we do for the sustainable procurement commitment for the palm oil and for the cacao. And soybean and share policy will be coming shortly. And for the human rights, we have human rights issues for the supply chain and also our company itself. For the supply chain, the biggest problem is maybe the cacao and the child labor issues in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And what very much focused on how to solve that with the NGOs, local NGOs and global NGOs to solve these issues. And that's one of the top priority. And what we do use the DX is for the monitoring of deforestation of the in Malaysia and in Indonesia. It's very difficult to, we stop deforestation, but how? People just deforest. So we use the satellite system to check whether there's deforestation going on or not. And how to actually secure that kind of idea. Maybe I had this revised one, which is not up here, but what we have is that the grievance mechanism, that we have this national contact point that people who think that there's something wrong with their palm plantations and supply chain, they could always raise a claim for that. And we'll check that and the result will be already released. And we have whole list of what the claims are. We have more than 100 claims and how they were treated and what is the current status. Sometimes we do suspend or we halt the business with some of the bad guys. So that's how we manage to promote the sustainability. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mariko-san, for that wonderful overview. One just quick follow-up question is, you mentioned palm oil, which is in cacao, which is your main business, and which is also a hotspot for these sustainable issues. What inspired your management and when to take this issue seriously?
Actually, it started like 10 years ago.
Is that right?
I was working for the Daiwa, and I was sort of like advisor to Fujio for a long time. And first, they were approached by some of the foreign clients who wanted to buy RSPO for the palm oil, the sustainable palm oil. So that was the start of it. Because at that time, I was asked from the CSR people, you have to persuade our supply chain top management, because they don't understand what it means. So it started that time, and then we noticed that's the importance of the supply chain and the problem of the mass forest destruction and also the child labor. So we started it.
I see. Oh, I see. So you were instrumental in bringing about that.
But it's been only 2 years since we had this policy published outside.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Okay, Jen, so on to you. LIXIL, tell me what you guys are doing.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll pull up my slides. So while the slides are coming up, So first, a little bit about LIXIL. LIXIL is a global leader in water and housing technology. So we make products that basically move water in and out of homes, but we also make some of the most high performance floors, doors, windows, interiors, exteriors, and so forth. You can build an entire home with LIXIL product. 1 billion people use our products to get up and get to work and take care of their kids every day. And with LIXIL, when we came together in 2011, we were really the amalgamation of a series of mergers and acquisitions. 5 companies, Japanese domestic companies, came together and said, let's forge a united future. And because of the declining and aging population in Japan, this is what we need to do to actually survive and to be sustainable. It then went on to acquire some additional companies. So today, we're a company that came together somewhat artificially. And so we had to really ask ourselves, when I arrived in the company in 2014, what is the real purpose of this corporation? What is our role in society, and how can we actually contribute and create a sustainable growth strategy that enables us to serve the next generation onward? And so really, we didn't call it ESG, but for us, we needed to find our core raison d'etre and be able to define that and then work to realize that. So for LIXIL, it's very simple today. Our corporate purpose is to make better homes a reality for everyone, everywhere. And everything that we do and our value creation process really ladders up to being able to realize that purpose. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I've got 3 slides. They're somewhat conceptual because there's a lot of detail, but I just wanted to touch on them. This slide really just talks about how integrated and connected all our moving parts are in terms of value creation. We've got very clear strategic goals as a company. We want to be a much more nimble, resilient, and agile organization. We're obviously working very hard to become more innovative as a company, just as everyone else is. And in order to do that, we've got a very clear midterm plan that outlines the 4 key strategies that will enable us to achieve sustainable growth. And within that plan, as you can see from that first slide, the first key strategy is really around establishing that more modern, nimble, resilient company where people who work at LIXIL can be very proud of what we do. And the corporate responsibility strategy, Jérôme talked about responsibility. We call it the corporate responsibility strategy. And it really encompasses, I guess you could say, our ESG strategy. But at the time when we formed it, we said, if we want to become a company where employees, every single one of us, the 60,000 of us working in 150 markets around the world, really be proud of this company, what do we really need to be doing in an integrated way into our business reality and moving this corporation forward? I mean, we don't have the resources of many other companies in the world. We have a very struggled legacy where we've got to today. So we really need to choose the things that are going to matter to our employees, to our stakeholders, and to society. And so we decided to form this corporate responsibility strategy almost to define what we will do and will not do. And that's really kind of the basis. I want to share a little bit more about that value creation process through the corporate responsibility strategy. We've really embarked upon 3 key areas where we've defined. The first is truly unique to LIXIL, and it's really around tackling the challenges of global sanitation and hygiene. And I'll talk more about that, but essentially how we do, we're kind of otaku about toilets. We have amazing know-how and expertise on how to move water in and out of the home, whether it's making a powerful shower experience with half the water of the competitors, or making a 4-liter flush toilet versus the 10-liter flush that you see in America. All right, so we're really kind of passionate nerds when it comes to water technology. So global sanitation and hygiene is an area where the entire organization felt tremendously passionate about. 2 billion people in the world today have no access to a basic toilet. Right? 673 million people live in waste. They're actually living in open defecated environments where you have tremendous disease, economic, social, and environmental burdens that really hold communities back. One could argue, and it's not for today, but the greatest innovation in human history could have been plumbing. All right. So sewage systems and the ability to separate human contact with waste really enabled us to live longer, our children to grow up healthier, and to move forward and build productive economic societies. So this is an area we're really passionate about, and we have tremendous know-how. So we've developed a whole series of strategies and priorities in this area of global sanitation and hygiene. And we believe by focusing in on this area, we create so much better connections with our business stakeholders. I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of energy that's generated with our sales force, with our distributors and suppliers, as well as our employees. The other areas, of course, water conservation, environmental sustainability. We're a maker of products. And even though we talk about being much more climate friendly with regard to our manufacturing and supply chain, the fact of the matter is 90% of our environmental footprint is actually generated by the products in use. So the way to think about that is, if you've installed a 10-liter flush toilet and that toilet flushes 10 times a day, depending on how many are living in the home, versus a 4-liter toilet, right? These toilets are going to survive for 20, 30 years. These long, durable consumer goods, right? The difference between the impact of that 10-liter toilet and the 4-liter is massive. You can do the math. So 90% of our impact is really coming from products in use. So our job is really to focus in on how are we going to make these products more environmentally friendly, not only in the kind of materials we use, but in how it's used in the homes and in the buildings. 30% of total energy consumed in the world today is in buildings and homes. So it's really very, very much core to what we need to be tackling as part of our responsibility. And then last but not least is really around diversity and inclusion. We make products for end users, for people like you and me, for, the elderly, for children. And so much of what we make really needs to be empathetic and connected with what our consumers are struggling with, what their lifestyle preferences are, and how their needs are changing over a lifetime. If our organization doesn't actually reflect the societies we're trying to serve, it actually makes us less competitive. And we understand that. So diversity and inclusion is an absolutely, I would say, integral part of how we will successfully transform as a company. And this year we announced very ambitious, but we think realistic targets to achieve 2030 goals in the area of diversity and inclusion, including gender parity at the取締役and執行役levels. So we're very excited about what we're embarking on this year and in the next 5 years. And these 3 pillars really kind of capture what we believe, if we can move forward and advance on the targets we've set and the goals that we've set for ourselves, we can become a much more sustainable and profitable organization where, first and foremost, our people will be most proud to be working.
Okay. Well, Jen, thanks so much. It's very, very fascinating that you use actually ESG sustainability as an integrating formula for 5 different companies. I'm sure you had some pushback though from.
Well, actually not really.
Really?
You know, when I was first asked to come join LIXIL, it was because we had done so many series of M&As that the corporation sort of struggled with how to explain itself to the street, to employees, you know, to partners. They didn't have the narrative. And, you know, my background is as a communications and government relations professional. So my job was to make things clearer, simpler, more articulate. But when I arrived and found the situation I was in 2014, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do what I normally do, which is to write a beautiful script, a long form narrative, and help everybody use this as a way to talk about the company. Instead, I decided to go on a journey to figure out, well, what makes us tick? And so I did a series of workshops, which was strange enough itself, okay, because I did arrive at a very traditional Japanese company, very different from what we are today. But I did a series of workshops to bottom up, where is the beating heart of this company? You know, what is the purpose? Why do you work here? What energizes you? And through this exercise of bottom up engagement, but also capturing the top down concerns as well as opportunities, we really came together and formed this 3-pillar strategy. And this was formed in 2015. It hasn't changed yet.
I see.
We've set our targets, we've updated our targets, but they still remain the core. And I think the governance mechanism we put in place by creating what's called the CRC, or the Corporate Responsibility Committee, which still today is made up of members of CXOs. So they're all shikoyaku level or torishimaru level. We all came together to start the journey of thinking about what it means to actually embrace this enterprise-wide effort to advance the corporation. And I think that, while it was slower in the beginning, has helped make our outcomes more durable. So that's just a kind of example of, I guess, how one company has gotten to this panel talking about ESG.
Wow, excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, Jérôme, thank you very much for waiting. Your turn. So what are you up to?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you very much. First of all, I feel very humbled after the great presentations of Mariko-san and Jin-san. And I would say the difference a bit for me versus the very high-level strategy that I just heard is that I am in a position of both applying a global strategy of a European company in Japan, in my case, and having to find a way to make it relevant for the Japanese environment. So I will maybe try to summarize in a few words what the group is doing and what we are doing with the Japanese teams. So let's move on. Slide doesn't change on my screen. I don't know for you.
It changed over here.
Good, thank you. So first of all, to give you a brief introduction, the L'Oréal Group obviously is originated in France, in Europe. It's a beauty company, so we are producing and obsessed by beauty through all channels, all categories, but only beauty. The company is more than 110 years old, and we became year after year the #1 company. So we are roughly 30 billion euros company. We employ 88,000 people, and we have, as I said, 35 brands. And obviously, one of the complexities of such a company is to create a frame from the corporation, but also something that each brand with their own personality can engage in. Next, please. Okay, so what about Japan? So that's the L'Oréal Group. What about Japan? So Japan is a more recent subsidiary, and we were launched in Japan 50 years ago. We employ here almost 2,500 people, representing 31 nationalities in Japan. And from the big portfolio of L'Oréal Group, we have in Japan 16 of the global brands, and some of them are Japanese, like Shuemura, a makeup company, or more recently Takami skincare company, which are Japanese. But next to that, we have all the international portfolio of major brands. So to give you a few examples of what we do, maybe the next slide. We have obviously in Japan a few big brands, like you see on the left, L'Oréal have Maybelline as a makeup brand, and the Lashionista mascara that you see is one of its major product. L'Oréal Luxe has brands like Lancôme, and Genifique is the main one. L'Oréal Professional sold in salons as Inoa, and L'Oréal Active Cosmetics as La Roche-Posay. What is interesting in all these examples is that they were all products from international brands, but made in Japan by our research in Japan and for the Japanese consumers. So we have this kind of agility to deploy global brands, many global products, but also, and very often the best sellers are products that have been made specifically for Japanese consumers. Next, please. So what we just are deploying right now, and I think this is also very important when we talk about responsibility, is the concept of purpose. Obviously, the purpose of a company, the purpose of their employees is very important to drive that effort. That is obviously not only about gaining market share or fulfilling financial results, but also purpose. And that's what engaging people. So the purpose of L'Oréal has been redefined a few months ago as creating the beauty that moves the world. And you can see obviously an interesting manifesto, what we do, what we act, and especially you will see that we act to shape the future of beauty. We act to drive social innovation, but also if you go down the list, we act to champion the cause of women, and we act to protect the beauty of the planet. Again, as a responsibility, we feel particularly responsible to champion the case and the cause of women, but also to make women and men beautiful, but also the planet more beautiful. So that's in a way embedded in our purpose. Next, please. So we launched this program. It was the first logo, which is called L'Oréal for the Future. To give you a few perspectives, we had for 15 years a program called the Sharing Beauty with All, which was really about improving L'Oréal as a company, and we reduced dramatically water consumption, CO2 consumption. We disconnected more volumes of product used, but less resources used. So that was a big achievement. But a big turning point was the COP21 organized in Paris a few years ago, where L'Oréal was one of the signatories. And then we started to shift our focus from not only trying to improve ourselves, but trying to make a bigger impact and to move to science-based targets. That was a big revolution for this sustainability strategy, to move from a strategy where we try to consume less resources, which we still continue to do, but to a more holistic vision of the whole ecosystem around products, including our consumers, including our suppliers, including our clients, and to make this whole ecosystem much more women-friendly and planet-friendly. So we do not want to disconnect in our sustainability policy the social cause of women and the social engagement we need to have and the planet. We think it's the same planet, it's the same ecosystem. So one of the first very important philosophies is to connect planet protection and social protection. Next, please. So, as I said, we have obviously set our new science-based targets, SBTs, to respect the planet boundaries, to protect the climate, to limit water consumption, to protect biodiversity, to use less resources, and completely embedded to continue to live our social commitments and enhance our social commitments. Next. So when it comes to Japan, because that's the global picture, when it comes to Japan, obviously we have to respect the global frame, but we wanted to get involved in particular issues of Japan, and we just looked at the SDGs as defined by the United Nations, and where Japan was maybe a bit underperforming versus many other countries, and where maybe L'Oréal, as a local company, could maybe make some improvement and contribution to special topics that are very dear to the Japanese society. So you see on the screen, we selected the gender equality, responsible consumption and production, climate action, and partnerships as our main goals. First, because they are very important, but also because Japan probably needs to make more progress on those 4 topics than on the others. Next, please. So what we did last year, we launched this new program, L'Oréal for the Future, and we made, first of all, a few commitments because we believe it would drive really the energy of our people, the energy of our partners. So first of all, we declare that we will be completely carbon neutral as a company, L'Oréal Japan, next year. We made a second commitment is by 2023, we would be able to reduce by almost 30% the CO2 emission of our transportation. And we made another commitment also for 2023, which was, again, for the climate protection, to reduce dramatically the CO2 emission of the car fleet of the employees. You know, we employ a lot of people going to work, to visit clients. They use cars, and we want, obviously, these cars to be less consuming. We want also to reduce dramatically international transportation, air transportation, in order to protect the planet. So that's a kind of manifesto and midterm goals that we have. Next, please. Then, because we don't disconnect nature and social, we wanted also to reinforce our action in Japan. For example, we support single mothers that are looking for a better life and better jobs, and we give them trainings. We support women in science. We have, for 15 years, celebrated the best women scientists in Japan and in some other countries. By the way, the Japanese scientists are absolutely amazing because they've been also able to win some of the international contests that we have. It's a prize given both from L'Oréal and from UNESCO at global level. And more internally, we want to promote women in leadership. And we take a certain pride to make sure that the women equality treatment, but also the women parity at every level of the company is respected, from the entry level to the senior management level. The top 100 managers are half women at L'Oréal. Next, please. So what we did also recently, because we believe it's always important to keep pace with the times and to continue to evolve, we want also to set a process where we don't just decide one objective and then it's going to be the same objective for the next 10 years. We want to constantly evolve. And we gathered recently a very important women empowerment advisory board. So with very prominent women that are going to advise L'Oréal, and particularly L'Oréal Japan, in how to make progress. And I was personally particularly inspired by this diversity of ladies with different point of views. But one thing that I learned from them in our first session recently is the gender equality bias. And they were keen on saying that there is never or very rarely bad intentions, but there are a lot of bias that make us make some decisions in favor of men very often that we need to be conscious about before we can really act upon. So this is really something we will be working on. And last slide, yeah. And then, as I said, we have a corporate activities, which I presented about planet, about women cause. But what we also have is many brands, and we obviously don't want the brands to just be spectators of what the company is doing. And each brand has decided to embark in some CSR programs. For Kiehl's, it's about recycling together with TerraCycle. For Shueimura, it's about protecting craftsmanship in some areas of Japan. For Maybelline New York, it's Brave Together. It's about fighting anxiety of teenagers. And for L'Oréal Paris, it's about standing up against sexual harassment on women, and especially in public places. So these are social causes, sometimes a bit more planet-oriented, sometimes a bit more social-oriented, but that are not only fitting into the frame of L'Oréal and Group and L'Oréal Japan, but also embedded in the personality of these brands. Next slide, please. So that's the conclusion of L'Oréal for the Future. So to come back to your point, Ken, I think my two big messages today, or three, I would say, is for L'Oréal, it has been really to connect planet and social. The second, it has been to increase the holistic vision after COP21 to move from a production and very hard fact oriented to a more holistic and cooperative vision. And more recently, it has been really also to set up the right culture training processes in order not to live on the same plan for the next 10 or 20 years, but really to make it evolve as times evolve and stay fit with what society is expecting from us.
Okay, Jérôme, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Listening to your presentation, it kind of felt like as a cosmetic company that your main business is beauty, but it's not just about looking pretty, but also feeling pretty. So like not just the outer, but the inner part. So that was very, very fascinating. One sort of quick follow-up is I wanted to sort of hear from you is you're a European company, French origin, and working here in Japan. Is there any changes in or differences in sensibilities of the European sense of sustainability versus Japanese sense of sustainability? Do you feel any difference?
Yes, there are some differences. I think obviously the type of topic might differ sometimes, and depending on the place you live in, obviously some regions will be particularly touched by the social aspect. Some other region will be particularly touched by the water aspect. We heard from previous presentation the child labor and things like that, which we might not witness in Japan, but might be for other parts of the world very important. So we cannot deny some regional specificities. But if you focus on Europe versus Japan, I think in a way, the core philosophy, I think, in Europe has been very much to be very respectful of nature. Whether I think Japan nature is obviously nice and beautiful, but sometimes hostile. So you need to have an attitude of protection, but also an attitude of control over nature, which I think is more developed in Japan. And in terms of philosophies, I think especially French tend to move by intentions, whether Japanese move by action. And I think this is a bit also a bit of in French mentality, intention precedes the action, whereas in Japanese mentality, have the impression that you start by you start small, you start to prove your case, and then naturally it will expand. So I think it's a bit of a different approach.
I see. Interesting. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you so much for the presentations. For the remaining roughly 20 minutes, I wanted to go into the how question, and you already in the three presentations came up with the key words that I was interested in. Well, one is planet, and the second one is actually people. So taking the planet questions, how are you engaging in your company in terms of the planet? I want to go back to Jérôme again, because I was interesting to see that by 2020, L'Oréal Japan is committed to zero carbon neutral, which is we're in Japan, we're saying 2050. So I thought that was the intent, I thought was what was really startling, or was amazing. So how are you planning to do that by 2022?
So on the action plan, the how, as you say, again, this is first. It started. It's a process. So it's not like we are changing dramatically in 1 year. It's something that has been engaged. How it has been engaged was basically to be extremely focused on saving resources, saving energy. We have, for example, switched 5 years ago to green electricity for all our sites. Office, factory, research, all use green electricity in Japan. So that's something that any company can do. And the second thing was obviously to embark all our people to make sure that we would do the necessary efforts to reduce consumption, to reduce resources. And the last point is really our factory, because here we are speaking about big investments. And to be very specific, in the factory, to produce cosmetics, you need to use warm water. Using warm water consumes a lot of energy, not only in your shower, but also in the factory. And by having the right technologies and investing a few million euros in the right technologies, you're able to have carbon neutral boilers that are basically going to use warm water and to warm up the whole factory with zero carbon consumption. So that's the kind of measures that we take step by step, site by site.
Great, wonderful. The planet how question, let's go to LIXIL then.
Yeah, I mean, I think with regard to what I was saying earlier regarding our focus areas, it's really around the products in use. We can't make nearly the kind of commitments that L'Oreal has had. We're not going to get there for carbon zero next year, but our target is 2030. And a huge part of that is really, again, going back to the products. So for example, and we're really at the early stages, I think we need to be much more robust, but we've actually gotten a tremendous success in Europe under our Grower brand team around faucets, where we've launched our first cradle-to-cradle gold certified product. And what it essentially means is that how the product is made, the inputs, and the product itself is fully circular in terms of it returning back to nature. And I think if all of our product lines can eventually get there, figuring out where our prioritization will be, especially around the areas of fittings, because fixtures are much more difficult with ceramics. I mean, this is really where we're putting our priority focus. And we've got an amazing team in Europe that's really able to think about how to drive the replacements around products and using much more recyclable material. And that team is actually taking on a much more expanded role going forward with regard to our environmental sustainability efforts. So we think we're really at the beginning stages, but the how is about not necessarily thinking Japan is where everything is invented, because this is where we're headquartered. And you know, it's been a big change with regard to our culture, that we really want to embrace the global community of advocates and champions within the company around how we move forward with regard to environmental sustainability. And we're bringing much more senior level engagement and energy to tackling some of these big goals. So I would say that for us, the planet piece is something that we need to do a lot more work around. And we've been focused and made tremendous strides with regard to our supply chain and manufacturing. But that's really 10% of our game. It's really, really focused around the innovating of our products. And so that's where we're focused.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Mariko-san, so the planet question, how question for Fuji Oil, do you have a...
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Because we're a B2B company and we have some upstream cases or the how to procure, and then we have our clients who are mostly food producers, so we can do for that area. And for the upstream or the for the farms and plantations, deforestation is stopping deforestation is one thing, and to promote more regenerative farming is another potential we're seeking into, because it's been said that the agriculture and food industry is responsible for 30% of the global heating gas.
I see.
So recently it's been reported that the soil itself has a power to absorb. But because you have more chemical pesticide, fertilizer and so on, they will lose the power to absorb. So if you change the method of the farming to make it more traditional way, then the soil itself has more power to absorb the carbon.
Right.
So that's one thing, that to change how to produce the cacao and also the palm oil and also the soybean. And we also invest in shea butter and those products. That's one thing we can do. And other thing is to upcycle what we produce. And we are one of the major makers of the soy meat, and we've been in this for like 60 years.
60.
Wow. Yes. The reason why I started this is that it was after the war, where in Japan we had some food shortage problems, and we were in the edible oil maker, but we could not get the soybean to produce oil. What we are given is that the residuals of the soy, which taken out the oil. So, no oil. So, But at that time, the leader thought this residual has like 30% of the protein inside. This protein would save the world in the coming time.
Wow.
So the company kept on doing the research for like 60 years. And now recently there's a soy meat and the vegan boom and everything. So people are more focused on that. So it's the idea of upcycle. You know, people didn't want the soybean without the oil. So we're good at sort of like upcycling. So we use lots of ingredients and there are lots of residuals. And there's a team who are now trying to investigate, can we use these wastes? So there's a big potential for doing that. And the other potential is that for our clients, they are suffering from the food loss issues, food waste. We could produce with our technology some of the ingredients and additives which could make the duration time longer, so make it more fresh. Because we're mostly using the plant. It's not chemical, but from the plant-based, we could have those kind of new ingredients to support our clients, the food makers, to lessen the food waste themselves. So that's another thing what we can do. And for saving the planet, other thing is that important keyword is the biodiversity, especially for the deforestation. It's not just carbon, but for the biodiversity loss is a very important thing. So we're more focused on biodiversity and whole sustainability, not just carbon, but whole sustainability. But by supporting that kind of thing, we could promote from the upstream to the downstream.
Right. Okay, interesting. So this planet how question, we think about, well, for one right now because of the CO2 neutral target, we think about that a lot. And usually we think about heavy industry or transportation, but I guess in reality, a lot of the CO2 comes from the household, consumer products and things like that. So that's very interesting. And for the planet how question, it always leads to the people part, right? And so for the second half of the how question, the people question, how do you engage with the people? How do you change their consuming habits? Anything in that area that I don't have a particular order. So first come, first serve. The how question for people. Yeah. Okay, you win.
It's a very important question. That's the reason why I joined Fuji Oil last year. And maybe for the company, people within the company or the employers, and those people were very narrow-minded, or they're good at their business, but they're less concerned about what's going on in the world. So my one of the role is to let people know what's going on outside of the world and how we are evaluated from the other part of the world. And actually, we really have some big potentials and good part, but lots of employees don't know. They just come to the office or to the factory and go home. So they don't really realize their value. So if they realize their value, they could do more with what they were producing. So that's one thing. Is for the other thing is that to change the suppliers. Or engage with the local suppliers is what we're doing within Malaysia and Indonesia with the local NGOs that we're trying to support for the local suppliers to get the license of the RSPO. So we're doing that kind of thing a little by little on that area. And for the people inside, we're trying to teach or let them understand what's happening with them. And the challenge is that the general gender diversity, because most Japanese company, it's going to be the near the future issue.
Right. Okay. Well, Jen?
Yeah, I think the how question around people is the essential question. For us, we don't say the strategies are going to help us achieve sustainable growth and profitability. We say our people are going to help us achieve that. And so a huge amount of effort is really focused around how do we unlock people's belief in what we're doing and feel they have an ability to participate in it. And for us, year on year, when we do our global climate survey, the work we're doing in corporate responsibility and sustainability always comes up as the number one thing that makes them most proud to be at this company. Not that we just launched the most, the coolest new toilet or the new shower faucet. It's always around the work that we do. So some of the things that we've done in the company is really create the culture that says you can be proud of and participate in. So we have something called LIXIL Community Day, which is actually a whole week where at the same time around the world in that same week, every business unit, every team, every plant, every site can organize around the 3 key pillars of our sustainability and actually do work that they'd like to do in support of the community. So it's another way for people to get involved. We have a global partnership, a shared value partnership with UNICEF. It's actually the first UNICEF global shared partnership around sanitation and hygiene. And in that partnership, we have a program called Make a Splash. And that program is both leveraged as a CRM program for us to partner with our products. And so our teams, our marketing teams get to be part of creating value for the Sato social business. The Sato social business is actually a business startup that we've created within the company that innovates products and solutions for the base of pyramid consumer who has no toilet. And employees can actually participate in that program through donations and through participating in the seminars and discussions. But essentially, we want to create and have been spending quite a lot of time, I think relatively successfully, creating a culture within the company that allows for employees to feel like they can play a part in and actually bring ideas to further move that sustainability agenda forward. I think that's really important because you don't want this to be an effort that's only really part of one small team in the corporation driving. You want everyone to feel they can have a say and a role.
Okay, right. Well, Jérôme, you're in the people's business, so I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on the how question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think there are many similarities with what Jin-san was just explaining. First, honestly, it started with a few champions. It started by having a sustainability officer. L'Oréal, at least in France, was the first company to appoint a chief sustainability officer at the executive committee level, somebody that could impact the rest of the organization. And then you started to have sustainability officers in every country. And I have in my executive committee a chief sustainability officer. And then we created a team of champions, for each entity, whether finance or supply chain or IT or brand A, B, or C. Each one had their sustainability champion of all generations, all profiles, and their role was really to create the company they wanted and to give them the frame about planet and people, but within this frame, to be able to suggest ideas. And that's how a person in the lab had the idea to create a big seminar about green chemistry that has been fascinating to learn from all parts of the company. Another person talked about cleaning rivers. And then we have what we call on our side the Citizen Day, where basically it's also a few days actually, but people can participate into activities that are within this frame. So I've been myself cleaning the rivers. Some people went into elderly homes in order to give some physical support, some lectures, some extra entertainment to elderly people. So, and this was not created by the company. This was actually created by the people themselves who wanted to engage in those companies and are proud that the company is giving them the frame, the time, and the resources to engage in society a little bit out of their daily work. And I strongly believe that when it becomes part of you, you are much more productive and much more engaged than it is when it is just complying with what the company has decided for you.
Excellent point. Excuse me. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point because you empower the people and have them engaged, and it becomes their purpose. And if you have a lot of purposeful people in your company, obviously the purpose of the company it will be much more engaged and results oriented. So thank you very much for the wonderful session. I think 1 hour was a little bit too short for the topic with such a panel of experts. I mean, we could have dove into much more detail. But I guess one thing about this sustainability, actually, this is a topic that Jérôme brought up in our earlier discussions for this session. Was this concept of partnership. So no one company can do everything. And if you think about it, the SDGs is talking about leave no one behind. And obviously no one can do that. I mean, it takes a lot of people to come together and to achieve those high goals. But I think it's wonderful that the Japan Times have put together this forum, in a way brought together at least 3 partners that was able to discuss about sustainability. And I'm sure there's lots of other people watching this session that feel the same, calling for sustainability for a better planet. And frankly, it's up to us, the people, to get that done. So I thought it was a great way to sort of confirm that message. And I'm glad that we were given that opportunity to do so. So thank you very much again to Mariko, Jin, and Jérôme on the other side of the screen. But it was wonderful spending time with you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for this great opportunity.